So many people are afraid to be who they are or to lose the love they have.
People who have been working on themselves for a long time, or let's say ourselves for a long time, when we are not in a humble or state, then there might be judgment. And I think then, see, that's where the releasing comes in.
You can release by yourself without a middleman. That's so important. And bring your soul back in your own sovereignty, in your own power. And sometimes the worst thing can be when you have a strong desire, wish, or need, and and you don't know what to do about it.
I feel like many people dismiss also their own spirituality because it has to be an all or nothing kind of perspective.
Hi, and welcome to The Sounding Ground, bringing you real conversations on healing, well-being, spirituality, and consciousness. I'm your host, Amanda Ling, an author, healing arts practitioner, musician, and mentor. Today, I'm so happy to have a beautiful couple with me, Heiko and Selina Niedermeyer, on this episode. For the past 2 decades, Heiko and Selina have worked together with individuals from around the world, helping them free their hearts and minds from pain and suffering, while helping them to discover their own greater purpose, clarity, and personal power. Mentored by Dr. Isa and Yolanda Lindwall, founders of the Lindwall Releasing Process. Their work has touched the lives of people from 39 and more countries through private sessions, workshops, retreats, seminars, talks across Asia and Europe. Recognized as among the world's most experienced releasers and releasing teachers, supporting individuals on their own journey of consciousness, healing, and spiritual evolution. And, beyond their personal and professional work, they are deeply committed to volunteer service, supporting a lot of vulnerable communities, including survivors of domestic abuse, individuals recovering from addiction. And also a little fun fact, they have contributed to a little snippet into my book, Align, Shift Chaos into Clarity and Calm. One of my chapters, I would touch a bit on that a bit later. But Heiko and Selina, welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you guys here on The Sounding Ground. Good morning to you guys.
Good morning from Mexico. Thank you, Amanda. We're so happy to be here.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for creating this. And it's a great joy to be with you, really.
Thank you. We're very colorful today. We've got like red, orange,
Yes.
and blue. Hey.
Yeah.
So, like maybe just to introduce a bit about yourself individually and, how did you come to even come to the path of releasing? What is releasing, right? And how, in your own story, in a very brief way, how do you discover that? And how does that impacted your life before becoming a practitioner of that?
It started very early that my interest in that was there. As long as I can remember, that longing for truth,
Mm.
for divine, the beauty of life, the true purpose of my life was one of my main questions since I can remember, since I'm a child. And then in my teenage time, I realized that, and I wrote down that I have this divine spark right within me, in me as me. And that is surrounded by layers of fear, insecurities, doubts that would stop this inner essence, this inner light from coming out, from shining out. I drew this actually in a picture of like a real core essence of light, and it was like
Wow.
an atmosphere, like the clouds around the earth, that would stop this inner light to come out. And I said, I want to release all the layers. I want to release all the layers to have all of who I am come forth. and to experience that. And then years later, I met our teachers who talked exactly about that. That when the more you release anything that is not unconditional love, that is not your true essence, that the more you release that, like an onion, that the more this true self shines forth. So that was like match on gasoline for me. I wanted to know the what. I knew the what I want. What I was looking for was the how. How can I get there? And I looked in music, of course. I looked in art. I looked in poetry. I looked in people, in love, in nature, in everything for that essence, that spark, that reality. What is true? What is real?
Oh, it's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Sort of
Yes.
that situation. Because you were yearning from a very, very core space, an essence within you for more, for what you want to know more. And then it's like, what's that guy's name that he speaks on the universe will conspire to bring everything towards you, when you are very clear with what you want. Thank you. How about you, Selina?
Like Heiko, it started very early. In fact, I can go all the way back to 4 or 5 years old. But when it comes to the releasing part, there's a little bit more background directly related, where you can say I had a direct personal experience with Jesus, and which led me to practically fall in love with Jesus. And from that space of overwhelming love and devotion, there came a yearning to be of service to Christ. It was often, what can I do for you? How can I be of service? And that went on for a few years. And then when I was in my late 20s, I had a strong urge to heal, So I was, and had this energy coming from my hands. So I was, rubbing against rough surfaces to just remove that almost an itch, but not. It was a strong energy. And I said, what can I do? There's this energy coming from my hands. And that was when Reiki came on the scene.
Yeah.
That was the start of Reiki. And when I heard it had to also to do with hands, the laying of hands, I thought, okay, that's it. So I went and studied Reiki. And I was raking everything.
Yeah, that's what you start doing.
Trees, animals, people, everyone. I said, do you want some Reiki? And they would go, what's Reiki? And I would explain. And so that was healing. People felt better. But as I was raking people, I also felt that there was a depth of healing that had to happen. I kept saying, but they're not healing at the soul level. They need to heal at the soul level. Intuitively, I felt that there was a root to everything that people were going through, physical issues and pains and emotional stuff. I kept saying, there's a root to this, is at the soul. How do you heal at the soul? And quite shortly after that, I met Heiko.
Wow.
And Heiko, when we sat down for the very first time together and had this incredible, deep conversation that was like we were wrapped in a vacuum. And one of the things well, we were sharing, and I said something, and Heiko said, "Oh, do you want to release that?" And I said, "Yes." And then he said, well, you can say this. And he gave me what we call releasing statement, one statement. I don't know what it was that I had to release, but let's just pretend it was like anger. So he said, you can say, I release my anger for this. Yeah. And I said it. And then he said, do you feel better? And I said, yes, actually, I feel lighter. And that was that with the releasing, right? We went on to share about many other things. And after we parted, everyone I met, when they shared with me something that hurt them or was a struggle, I would say what he said. I repeated him. I said, "Do you want to release that?" And then they would say, usually yes, and I would use the statement that he gave me and tweaked it to suit them. And that was the beginning of releasing until I went to Egypt with Heiko a few months later on a releasing tour with Isa and Yolanda.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
that's when I really discovered, oh my goodness, this is what I have been looking for. This is healing at the soul level that I've been searching for. Deep, deep, I mean, as soul level as you can get, into the root causes of why someone was suffering. So that's how it started.
Wow. It just felt very meant to be in that very divine time.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that just the pieces coming together and bringing you into that right moment and even having that releasing experience even before knowing what it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we met, it was like, or we made that choice before. So we followed up on our choice. Yeah.
Understand.
Like in the Matrix, when the Oracle says to Neo, you've made your choice already. You're here to find out why you made it.
Yeah. It's almost like future, past, and then present, in that sense there has been the timelines that has been happening had happened and you're just living it out now.
Yes, like Yolanda said to us, you were born to do this work. Yeah.
And then in Egypt, it was a releasing tour. So we went from the temples along the Nile, which represent the chakras along the spine and the body, and the Great Pyramid representing the crown chakra. So we went. At night, we slept in the boat. Next morning, we woke up at the temple, and we would be there, and people would remember previous lifetimes in Egypt, and it would trigger old memories and often pain because Egypt was a very, or actually, as it's called, Chem.
A lot
That
happened in Egypt. Yeah.
was a very powerful time for many, very intense time for many, but many people haven't released the old karmic imprints and pains from then. So we would go to the places together. It was so great that we could experience that together. And then people would release whatever came up. And then we went to different parts, different chakra temples, and released more until we finally went to the crown, the Great Pyramid. There we were told by Isa and Yolanda, we were shown that there was a block at the bottom of the Great Pyramid that was put there by negative forces many, many, many thousand years ago. Now, the Great Pyramid is an extremely important energy point for this whole planet, for this whole energy grid. And we were there to release that block that was there. So we did all kinds of work during this trip, but that was the main thing, to release. So we didn't just release inwardly, we released for the grid, for the planet, for this dimension. And that's what we did one night, that we all, the whole group, went together and released this block that was at the bottom.
That's great service, to release that. It's like the grid underneath in releasing the block on behalf of the whole, the entire humanity, planetary karma, right? In that sense, too.
Because it's the crown chakra. Yeah. So then it would very much open humanity to higher teaching, to connection with the divine. No.
And it was in 1999.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm.
I was just like, okay, teenager.
How old were you? How old were you then?
Teenager. I was 15,
Mm.
but already very clued in to into spirituality. I was
Did you
already
feel?
listening to a lot of what we call meditative music. I'm not sure
Mm.
you remember like Reader's Digest.
Of course, we had in my family, we were subscribed to Reader's Digest. Yes.
Yeah, like for me, I had this obsession with looking through the catalogs every month, and I would be so interested in the like getting the CDs from the meditation music, you know, all the binaural beats, and that's how I knew like Jeffrey Thompson, who's like the music producer who does binaural beats, and all these like what you would consider new age meditative music, pan flutes and all this, and Native American music from that. So it's a very special time in the 90s.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, well,
Mm.
you would take what you could get your hands on
I
to
know,
find
right?
some piece of essence of truth, something that would remind you to that something you could really resonate with, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, with like your own journey, because it has been so wonderfully ethereal, even, right? And how you are so clued in into your own ground of your inner core, your essence, like going with that intuition into what's next or what you feel is right, right? So how do you, was there like a defining moment? Like I know for Selena, you said like after meeting him, and then there's that, okay, that experience of release, and then you start to really open out into, but in terms of like moving forward, what was that defining moment that really shaped that you say, okay, I want to do this. Like I really want to do this for life. And that's like your purpose, right? Like was
Yes.
there at any point that something happened or it was just like a knowing?
Oh, it was a massive happening actually. So we were in Egypt, right? That's when
Yeah, yeah.
I first met uh, Dr. Lin Wall and his wife Yolanda. And so I'm really open and listening, watching, but super new, right? I mean, like, how long was I in releasing? A week, you know? And so there's this particular point, I think it was like maybe the third or fourth day into that 2 week journey on the Nile. And I came into the big room of the ship, uh, and everyone had broken into groups. It was a bit late. So I was searching who I should join, which group I should join, and I saw Isa and Yolanda had a group. See, there were 80 people, most of whom were Germans. And Heiko was leading a German group and speaking German. So when I saw Isa and Yolanda, I said, oh, it must be English then. So of course I went to the group. As I sat down, they were in the middle of sharing. And then I realized very quickly, oh dear, they are all experienced people, teachers of releasing. And I've been like 1 week old. So I didn't know very much what to say, except to say, I'm very new here. And as we finished and we were leaving, there was a woman that we had both been noticing for some time. So the first time we saw her, she was sitting in the dining room and she had eyes that were very dark and had no light. They looked black. They looked like stones in her face, you know, and she looked gray. And we said to each other, oh, there's something wrong with her. You know, she looks particularly dead, you know. So she was in that group with Isa and Yolanda. As we got up to leave, she was in front of me and on impulse, I touched her and I said, hey. And she turned around and I said, can I give you a hug? It's absolutely spontaneous. I had no thought around it. So she hugged me and then she said, well, who are you? And I said, well, what do I say, you know? From Selina from Singapore. And then she said, can you release with me? And it was just so sudden. And I said, well, I'm really new. As I said, I really don't know very much how I could release with you. I mean, she was supposed to be a teacher, right? She said, no, no. She said, I want to release with you. You can help me. I said, whoa, whoa. So she led me to a sitting area. And then I just said, well, I would like to know why you look so sad, or what's going on with you. You look great. And then she said, oh, my husband passed away 5 months ago. I said, oh, wow, that's really very close, and no wonder she was still in grief. And she started telling me her story, and then spontaneously, because everything was on the surface, I gave her releasing statements around it. So she was releasing, and then she was crying, and then she was saying, oh, that's true, whatever I picked out to release for her, making a releasing statement. And then there came a point where I felt like I was looking into a well of grief and darkness, and I didn't know how to get in there. I didn't know how to reach in there. And I said, I turned around. Heiko was releasing with someone else behind me, sitting down, another lady. But I said to her, hey, maybe you should release with Heiko. And she said, no, no, I want to release with you. I said, oh, geez, I don't know how to guide her. And then Heiko finished, and he came and sat with us, and I guided it to him. And then he started releasing with her very naturally, and she accepted it. And I just watched 3 hours of Heiko diving into the depth of that well with her, going into her past lives, going that he saw, going into her pain in the Inquisition, Spanish Inquisition and all that. And she was screaming and crying from the depths of her soul. And I was watching this in a bit of a shock, because I was thinking, wow, how can anyone withstand that kind of pain, the depth of that pain? She would have a heart attack, I said to myself. And she didn't. She just cried, and she screamed out, wailed out her pain in different things that he was releasing with her, and she didn't hold back. At the end of 3 hours, he brought her up into bliss, and she stood up with the biggest smile, and she hugged us, and she said, thank you. She said, thank you for saving my life. And I thought, wow, really?
Wow.
And then we walked back to our cabins because it was dinner time, and I was behind her. And as we were walking back, there was a mirror along the way, and she stopped and looked in the mirror, and she was just holding her face like this and gazing herself like in wonderment. So I'm observing this and like, wow. So okay, so that was that, and I didn't see her at dinner. The next morning, the ship had docked, and we were leaving, we're checking out. We all had to check out from the ship to go on to land to visit a temple. And she was next to me at the checkout counter. We turned at the same time to look at each other. And I had a shock. I mean, really, it was like a shock. A very nice shock, but it was a shock because her eyes were not black. They were bright blue. And they were sparkling. They were practically shooting out light. I'm like, whoa. And she had rosy cheeks. And she looked 20 years younger. I literally took a few steps back, and I'm like, whoa, look at you. And she said, I feel amazing. I said, you look amazing. You look 20 years younger. She said, I feel 20 years younger. And I was so impacted by that experience, by seeing her, that I almost cried. I went straight back to my cabin. I knelt down and I cried and I prayed. And I said to God, I said, please allow me, give me permission to do this work. And I was thinking of all my family and my friends back home and how they could benefit from releasing like this woman. And at that point, I said, please give me the gift to do this and all that's needed to do this work. And I had forgotten that I have a business back home. I was an interior designer with my own business. And I had a project waiting for me when I got home. And it just didn't matter. None of it mattered. All that mattered was, please God, give me the gift to do this. That's how it all turned around for me, and I dedicated my life to this. Nothing else mattered.
That is so powerful. Really powerful experience.
Yes, literally life changing. Yeah.
Very inspiring, because when you start to experience things that you don't expect, and then you just see how it slowly opens that path for you, right? Like it can be mind blowing. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, like there's no doubt, you know. I mean, look, I spent years saying, can I be of service? How can I be of service? And I was
Mm.
looking for soul healing, and then seeing it right in front of me happening, the process of it. How long did that take? 3 hours. I mean, we became friends with this woman, and years later, we were still friends, and she still looked like that. I mean, it didn't like turn
Maintain.
around, it didn't flip back into, she's still 20 years younger, and she had rosy cheeks, sparkling eyes. She was so youthful. And at the time she was 50 years old. She looked like she was 30. It was wow, amazing.
How about you, Heiko? You mentioned like when you met Isa and Yolanda,
Mm.
or rather you were really craving for like how,
Mm.
and then when you experienced or when you met them, that they were the exact way that you want to learn how to release things. Was that like that moment where you say, yes, that's it, that's where you want to head? Or did you need to like experience a little bit more first just to be sure? Or it's just really more in your heart, in your soul, you know that that's the direction that you want?
It was definitely straight away the direction for me to practice in my life. I
Ah,
was like handed a golden key. I felt so, as a gift was bestowed on me by learning this process, because it's so empowering. It teaches you how you can release by yourself without a middleman. That's so important. Bring this soul back in your own sovereignty, in your own power. And sometimes the worst thing can be when you have a strong desire, wish, or need, and and you don't know what to do about it. You don't know how you can prove something. So there was handed the diamond key, of the how. I felt so grateful, so happy to have found this, that I even considered going to the next workshop the next weekend, but I thought maybe I should leave the space for someone else because it's so precious. But then I allowed myself to go for more and for more and for more, because I wanted to release as much as possible. I want to release everything. And so when I saw Isa and Yolanda, and especially also Isa, they were both wonderful enlightened beings. And at the same time, Isa, with his profound, beyond the charts, clairvoyance to be able to look in people's hearts, to detect what they need to release, and saw this happening, and to saw radical, extremely deep changes, releases, healings, emotionally and physically. I saw things healed, deepest back pain in 30 seconds. And so when I watched him going around and releasing with the people, this man had the best job in the world. I mean, what better is there that you go? So many people are suffering, so many people everywhere. Everybody wants to be happy, and everybody struggles to find something, to find at least some relief, empowerment. And he just goes around and tells people what they release. And in their own sovereignty, they choose to release it and then have this incredible, deep, lasting healing. It's not always as big and it doesn't always look so big, the healing. Sometimes there seem to be smaller things, but it can be just a pebble in the shoe that can give you a blister. It's not always a big rock you carry on your shoulder. It's this nagging thing you have for 30 years. And when you release it, you go, ah, yeah. And to see that. And that was so inspiring. So it first started for me that I was like, I want to release as much as I can. So I kept releasing and using that. And before I even thought of course, the thought was nice to release with others. But my first thought was, I have to balance myself first, at least to some degree. I have to really go into that. I was like 21 when I met them, right? But it was match on gasoline. It kicked the door open. It was very empowering, and it started since then. And then gradually started that I started to work with people.
I mean, that's a very good point that you make about you have the intention to want to help people, but then you had that understanding that you have to balance yourself first. You need to take care of yourself first. You don't have to be perfect and completely healed, but then you need to have that exercise, that self-responsibility and self-care to make sure that you're okay and you're well regulated before you
Yes.
help people. And I think, like for me as a practitioner as well, I do really respect that. And it's actually a very key thing that we need to constantly have space for, because there's always this element of you need to help. And sometimes we burn out from helping. But it's a very good point that's being brought up for reminders, for anyone, in any work that we do, to just make sure that we're always balanced. What have you realized, or what patterns or struggles do you see, right, with the people that you release with that are very common, like the very common human issues, right, or emotion even?
Fear is one. There's so much fear. So many people are afraid to follow their heart, afraid to be authentic. So many people are afraid to be who they are, or to lose the love they have. Fear is there a lot, or fear to be rejected. Especially in these times, you see it a lot, that so many people don't say what they really mean, or they don't make the changes in their life out of fear that it won't work out, or that they will be rejected. So fear is one. Fear to fail is a lot.
Yes. Yes. And as always, it goes back to in this current life anyway, issues in relationships, relationships with family. A lot of family issues come up with parents. That is often this life's root cause for many things, from business and money to their own marriages, And of course, there's romantic relationships. That's also a very common one with people. And then past that is the physical issues, chronic issues that people don't seem to be able to heal through regular mainstream medicine. So then they come looking for us because it's chronic. And so they start to realize that maybe it's not just physical. Maybe there's something inside me emotionally that's the cause of this, because maybe they've read up on it or something. Then they come to look. So these are very common. Also phobias, a lot of depression. People are depressed. Then again, we go back to the root cause, and again, inevitably, it comes back to relationships with the parents and childhood. That's so entrenched in people that it really causes many issues and struggles in life. That's the most common.
When it comes to releasing, it's not just this life, there's also like past lives, other timelines. But what if, like, say the person that you're working with, they don't quite believe in it? And how do you manage that? Or even go into a root cause if you kind of knew, or is because of like a past life or whatever, but if they have like a belief or a non-belief about that?
There's no problem. No, they don't need to believe in anything. And we love that. There's no dogma. There's no paradigm you have to subscribe to first.
Cool.
Sometimes you can simply just intend to go way back to the root cause, whenever that is. And
That's
you
a good
go
one.
with the content that you have. That's what the releasing, when we release, helps so much with, to do away with all the limiting dogmas and the have tos. You have to believe this, you have to that. You just start where you are. It can be something from last week or right now, and you use whatever's coming up to the surface, whatever memory, whatever feeling, and start there. And it might be that you discover a memory that doesn't seem like from this life. Doesn't mean you have to believe it's really past life. All this having to believe that we have been put on for thousands of years, right? That's what we free ourselves from, to become sovereign, and that we will discover our truth for ourselves without anyone saying, this is true, you better believe it, or you don't get to heaven, or whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
When we guide people to the root cause and it goes further back, they just use their intuition. It feels like more yes. They might come upon images or feelings that don't belong in this life. And they're describing images that they are visualizing inside or feelings that come up. And then they say, well, I don't know where this is coming from. Is it my past life? Or even if they don't believe in past lives, they'll say, this is what I'm feeling. We just say, go on, tell us, share with us what you're getting. And if they don't believe in past life, it doesn't matter. We say to them, it could be your subconscious mind giving you pictures that you can understand, where there are things inside that you feel that you need to release. Yeah, in a way that you can understand. So really, there's no need to subscribe to any kind of belief. It's what you are bringing up from the inside. And it's what's being released that matters, and then the results from the releasing that matters. If they feel better, if the situation improves, if the healing happens on a physical level, they feel relief, or back pain completely disappears, or whatever ailment, then that's what matters, right?
In my previous lifetime, I believed in reincarnation. In this lifetime, I don't.
Belief system. But it's clarifying because, it gives permission, right? What you believe, don't believe, whatever it is, but it just really more of meeting the person where they are, however they experience life or experience the pain or experience anything at all. And you just come from there. And that's where it just can be like an opening channel for them to open themselves to the experiences, and maybe they would shift their perspective over time as well, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Isa Lindwall, when he was inspired with how to release, with the releasing process, he had such tremendous effect and results that one day he heard from Spirit, he says, my son, I gave you the key to healing. So healing has also many facets. Healing can be that we heal a heartbreak, a depression, that we heal a back pain or cancer, which has happened a lot through releasing, by the way. But healing is also when we heal amnesia of who we are. Yeah. When healing is also remembering what our true self is. That is healing too, because we meet so many people, and I'm sure you can relate, that who don't know who they really are. You've been told you have this name, nationality, and then you grew up with programmings from around you. You're this, you're that. You can do this one you can't. That you build like a identity, but don't really remember who you are. And that creates suffering. So when you release what you are not, the more you release all the ideas of who you are, also what kind of person you are. When you release your idea, you're a sinner. Yeah, big one. Release in all the reasons why you're a sinner. To release the idea that you're a sinner doesn't mean you're perfect and you have no responsibility to when you're in balance or do something wrong or hurt someone. No, it means that your true inner essence is pure. That means you're not a sinner. But many people, even if they don't use the word sin, are loaded, have their hard drive full with computer, like mind viruses that sabotage their self-esteem, their self-confidence, their self-love, their sense of who they are, and therefore also who other people are, their sense of reality. All these programs create this filter through which we look at the world and then project it onto it. And releasing that is a form of healing. We heal our perspective of the world and of ourselves. And we see that wonderfully that we always say, don't always believe what you think. So when you release all the negative thoughts and ideas about you, suddenly you take those glasses off and the other people around you look different too. And it's not easy to, as you know, it's not easy to see clearly. It's not easy to see clearly yourself. And when you release the sunglasses that block your view, everything can change. And suddenly you also find that a lot of things in the world that you think are wrong, suddenly you don't need to change. They're actually perfect. They just appeared imperfect, which means you live also in a happier world. Doesn't mean that you ignore the things that are happening that are painful or at least seem to be painful. But your whole view of life changes when you release all the layers and programs that you have subconsciously, especially. So in the process, it is important we realize that we carry subconscious glasses. And now I wear conscious glasses, but there's so many things we look through and we're not aware that we look through them. And when we bring that somehow in a gentle way to the surface and realize, I thought this negative idea about myself, I wasn't even aware I had that. I didn't know I hated myself for doing this or that, right? That when I clear the subconscious, which is the most powerful part of our being, then changes have such leverage. And the changes can happen. That's so beautiful. It's powerful.
It is very beautiful, and it takes a lot of ability to humble oneself, I feel, right? To get to that understanding that, oh, yeah, I'm actually looking at it from a different colored glasses. Because, people can be so stubborn in their own perspective, or this is how I am, this is how I'm born, so I'm just like that, right?
Yeah.
And it takes that, like I always say, willingness and readiness to be able to actually want to see it differently. Because there are some, I'm sure you guys experience too, there are some people they just stuck with their own programming and their beliefs, and they're just there. With these people that are very fixated, then how would they truly, really get in touch with their true selves?
There's most people, I would say. Most people. And I think even spiritual people, or people who call themselves spiritual, or practitioners, or healers, I think there's always an obstacle or a challenge in different degrees. You know, some days maybe we feel more open, more humble, filled with humility and the wish to really transcend our challenges, inner challenges, right? And other days it's tougher because we hit against the programs that say, I'm right. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
So I don't think it's a static or a even flow, always like this, always humble, always, and then I find that people who have been working on themselves for a long time, or let's say ourselves for a long time, when we are not in a humble or state, then there might be judgment. And I think then, see, that's where the releasing comes in. All it takes is the noticing of, oh, I'm judging myself. I release the judgment of myself, or if one can only notice, oh, I'm being stubborn in my view, then it's one other step to say, I release all programming to be stubborn in my view and my need to always be right. If one can make that one step to say that, is already a huge win, because then the door starts to open. But I think that one step is a very, very difficult step. It's a mountain of a step. When we started releasing, we both said at separate times that I said, when I discovered it and the depth of it, I said, I want to release as much as I can, as soon as I can. Like Heiko says, the gift is that we can do it ourselves. And that's what bowled me away. Gosh, I can be working on myself and healing myself at any time, as often as I want. Like, how wonderful is that? So we both had said that at different times, when he first discovered and when I first discovered, oh gosh, this is it. As much as I can, as soon as I can. Boy, we released so much and we went through such a healing, we could call it a healing crisis, or everything became sensitive. We were so shifted that we couldn't even withstand. We couldn't stand motion, a lot of heavy motion. Our nervous systems were so fried, with the shift. We would lie in bed, and we'd say, don't move. We say to each other, don't move, don't move.
Energy search.
And you move, be very, very, very still, very quiet when we move, because every movement would be so jarring for our nervous system. Loud sounds, bright lights, the shift was so rapid, but also on an energetic and physical level. So that was as much as we can, as soon as we can. So now we pace our clients because we know what it can be like if it's too fast.
Too much, too soon.
Too fast.
Yeah.
And release. It's so good if you have a partner or friend that you trust, who's familiar with the process, that you can support each other. Only because you on your own, you can release and use that, doesn't mean you can't get support, of course.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately you who makes the choice to let something go. But I can't sometimes see the back of my head, right? If I have a chewing gum stuck in my ears, like I had as a kid, yeah, you can't see it. But if you're somebody who loves you, is integrity, who you trust, you can get support. And so, because two people can see more than one often, right?
Yeah.
Or you can be in your emotions, in your right brain, while your partner is helping you with the left brain stuff, like forming, releasing statements.
Yeah.
The
a good
daily
pairing.
work, I mean, if you're very practiced, you can go in very, very deep yourself. But otherwise, on a daily basis, like brushing your own teeth and then going to a dentist for a root canal,
That's true. That's true.
And to get in touch with yourself, Look, if I don't listen to my intuition, if I don't listen to, call it my inner guidance, same when I drive a car. If I go too far to the left, sooner or later I create sparks at the planks. I go off road. That is friction, and the more friction, it becomes painful, and then it hurts like hell.
Mm.
So in a way, even I don't have a need for anyone actually to go get in touch with themselves, but the pain is a great guidance system where I'm out of balance.
So when it comes to like healing, consciousness, spirituality, what do you think are the misconceptions people might have around these themes, right? Because people might have different ideas. I mean, still many different roads to it, right?
In my opinion, through the years, when I was young, I used to be confused when I see psychics operating, at fairs and things like that. There was the idea that because they're psychic, so they must be spiritual, or they must be spiritually evolved at some level. And then it was always sort of a shock to see that they were not very compassionate or loving or spiritual. So I had to like flip my view and realize that things like psychic gifts and all of that were just distractions. They were not the real thing. And also with New Age beliefs, I started out very much being fascinated with New Age practices and all of that. And then coming to a point where I realized that's not it. That's not the real thing. And so personally, I went back, I sort of discarded all of that, or a large extent, coming to a point where I felt they were just distractions along the way to what was real in my growth. So then I had to ask myself, what is real on my journey? And it came back to the basics for me to start with love, with compassion and care for others, to being of service to others without losing oneself. Deep connection with the divine was very important for me because I had that connection since I noticed it when I was 4 or 5 years old. And speaking to God, in the chapel, in school, in my kindergarten in CHIJ, which is Chimes now. And every day after kindy, when I was waiting for my mother to come pick me up, I would go into the chapel and I would kneel and I would pray. And I would speak to God. But God was kind of far away from me, so I spoke to Jesus. Seemed nearer, And every day I would do that while waiting for my mother. And so it's like going back to my connection with God that was very important for me from that early age. And then strengthening that. And then in my integrity. And I was challenged in so many ways when I was in my teens to go through very, very tough challenges, to hold on, to discover my integrity and hold on to it, my core principles of life. See, and doing the right thing by me, who I am. All of this, I saw as the real spirituality, how I treated people, how people treated other people. All of that was very clear. And then came the knowledge and the meditation and the teachings that made me grow just deeper in love or compassion and understanding and connection with the divine. And so all of that for me then was, for me, the real spirituality.
Oh, it's like very embodied experience first. Then the techniques or the learnings come after, because it was so visceral within your system and within yourself. Normally, most people will be like, okay, the knowledge, the understanding, then you apply, then you embody. But it felt very natural for you to, it's just a very natural way of just feeling it and living it first. Then you go through a process of understanding what was happening, or what you can, what kind of wisdom you can get from elements of spirituality.
That's true. That's absolutely right. Because I didn't know what meditation was until I met Heiko. And I said to him, I don't meditate. I don't know what meditation is. That was the first time we met in Germany, when we were connected in Germany. And I said, all I know is that I'm very aware that I'm aware at all times. And he said, that's it. That's meditation. That's
That's the
it.
point.
And I said, oh, that's called meditation. Because I didn't have a name for what the things that I was doing. I didn't have labels. I just did what I did. Or that my communication and connection with Christ was so deep. I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know it was a thing, you see, that one had to achieve. When I came across New Age things and all that, I thought one had to learn these things, you see.
Yeah.
There was all this information out there that I didn't know. So that must be spirituality. Only to discover that, no, it's not. These are distractions. It's not the real thing. And the real thing I already had inside.
One of the strongest one is the identification with the body, that people cannot help to feel I'm this body, or they say love inside me instead of love as me. People say I got God inside me. Then so there's a God, there's an inside, and there's a me. There's a lot of separation there. Instead of saying in I as I. And the conception, the identification and programming, when people say me, they actually mean the body. So when that completely breaks away of more of a sense, that essence who I am, that awareness, is expressing itself through this physical body, what looks physical, which is actually just interwoven light, the body as light in the lower vibration. Everything changes. Also the way you look at everyone else. Actually, you stop seeing others because you see this is I in another body. There's only one self in all the bodies.
And when you say I, where does ego reside? Because, it's very common in the programming and the common language when it's I, it's just me. It's from that egoistic perspective. So, like, how do you define, or rather identify, understand, and the difference between the separation and the oneness? Even as you say, I is like in is I, right? And all that, where it's not coming from that space of I equals ego, but is I is everything. Because I is everything can be very from the omnipresent perspective, but I would say it's also your perception of how you are receiving this I, where most people that do not really would be misconstrued in a sense of like in the me perspective. Where's there the line drawn to differentiate the I would say the quality of it?
When people grasp the essence of what you just beautifully expressed and take on the idea of the true self is not the ego. And that is talking about the misconception in spirituality, right? That they try now suddenly to like kill an ego or just do away with an ego. Mostly people without guidance. That they do also spiritual bypassing, who go into just simple, oh, everything is one, all is oneness. There's no more me. And which creates a great psychological imbalance because they do some bypassing. Instead, to understand that when we grow up as a child, the first thing is to actually develop a healthy ego. Like parents raise a child with a healthy ego that is empowered, that gets the recognition, that gets the support, and develops a healthy sense of self, and not skip already then into like, okay, some non-self or no self, and go straight into an emptiness, and because that creates imbalance. Instead of first creating an really healthy and balanced, beautifully strong ego, and then at later stages, of course, balance that character, balance the personality, that then enables to be transcended into a through non-form self, an omnipresent self, which can, and this development of that character and the balancing and the healing of all the traumas. Everybody has their share of hell they go through from birth or even from before birth, that this is healed and at the right time, so that people can go gradually into that self-presence, what they then called alignment with higher self, needs to be really taken. As you say, what are the misconceptions? Often that people try to jump it and live in a false identity of no self, when there's still so much unhealed and unreleased and unbalanced. In the moment and the character becomes really balanced, it also becomes transparent. It is like a pyramid, four-side pyramid, through which all the qualities then can be concentrated and come in as well. And that is so important, especially at this time. So I'm so glad that you asked this question, because you know also, even when, for example, you do your sound healing, nobody would come for that if they wouldn't feel that they need some healing. And if they might experience a sense of oneness with all, but with acknowledgement, they might still have a broken heart. And when you work your magic with your bows and your singing, that this is brought into balance, and therefore then this true self can shine through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true, because you, in a way, even with it's energy, right? And energy is frequencies, and you're just letting the frequencies move through via the tools into the system from the physiological perspective points, and into the subconscious, conscious, and into the whole soul level. And the interesting experiences is that even though it's meant to be healing or relaxing, but because of the very process, the vibrations are moving through cellularly, energetically, it brings up stuff. And there were a couple of times that some of people were like, I know it's supposed to be a relaxing, but how come when you play a certain tone on the bowl, I get triggered? Or like I feel like anxious in that tone, but I feel anger in that tone of, whatever that they perceived as. So it's like things are being brought out to be released. Just as simple as that. And it comes back to your point of there's much needed process of healing the unhealed elements within the self from the root cause, to just release all of it out. So then you're able to embody what you can be, where, like you said, the light that comes through, because it's like clearing up. We have to clear up the system to have that nice clarity to come through in the light.
The whole emptiness and oneness. Yes, eventually.
It's an aspirational state to be, right? But I believe that we're here, we all have our own stories or narratives or purpose to go through, and having a physical 3D body here, it's something is an experience. It's also a privilege to be here on that level. So I suppose when we aspire to the oneness and everything, I do believe we came from that perspective as well. But at the same time, in the 3D world, there are the balance of dark and light that everyone has to go through. So like I like to say, the only way out is in and through, right?
Yes. Not to say that one cannot arrive at that point
Of course.
while even experiencing being I, me, myself, right? So I think it's more like being in a permanent state of that oneness, or sometimes being in it and sometimes not being in it, or completely not being in it. I feel like many people dismiss also their own spirituality because it has to be an all or nothing kind of perspective. I'm either it or I'm not. I'm there or I'm not there, rather than a gradual process of being in graduating there, and then going back and going up, going down, going around, going in.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because if in my experience, if when one feels the connection of being all, then there is no I. It really just is.
Mm-hmm.
The word that comes is. That's it.
In my silent meditation retreat, it's the element of equanimity. Like it is what it is, you know, like it is. And it's just that, I mean, that comes from the experience of acceptance, because it takes some acceptance to come into that awareness too, that it is. Because if not, you'll be fighting with putting a point and label into that experience or that sense of self, even in the self and the not self, the outside, the inside. But actually, it's just air, you know, in that context. It's just everywhere. Yeah,
Or
that makes
if
a lot of sense.
I connect with you, Amanda, or with a guru, or with a deity, with God, with Jesus, with our angel, Michael, whoever, Mother, Divine Mother. First there's that you, and then there's me. Yeah. You, me. There's Amanda. And in my concept, I would say you and I are one, right? But then there's a concept. And then there comes a point where that disappears, and I can't even say you and me. It's not even something that's there are no words, no?
Yeah, even by saying you and me and one, it becomes
it's still a separation. And then it comes to a point where it just is as an experience, no?
I had this question about, still on the misconceptions, spirituality versus religion. And I think that's a big one I need to unpack in general. But there's always this misunderstanding that when you say, I'm spiritual, but because spiritual people don't need to be religious, but sometimes, you know, on a contrast, religious people may not be spiritual in its essence. They're just going through motions, or just what's being the doctrine of things, right?
Yeah.
So how do you define that, or what needs to be unpacked from that?